everybody. It is Janet Metzger of the Network Marketers Den. I'm excited today. Oh, wow. I had such a great conversation, and I'm excited for everybody to meet this gentleman who is on our podcast this week. Buck McMurray, he is a veteran, truly a veteran of this great industry of over 20 years. He's worked in many different executive roles with different brands that you all know of, such as Rodan and Field, Stella & Dot, New Age Beverage, and he's currently with Epicure. He's the VP of Field Development, so he's feet on the street, so he really gets what you do. He's worked in marketing and learning development capacities throughout his entire career, but his heart really is with you, the field leadership and sales teams. He has a rich history of working with and coaching some of the best leaders in direct sales. I'm excited to hear about that. He helps them improve their sales management skills, because that is one of the key skills that you have to have. You got to know metrics, also how to develop your own leadership skills, and overall just grow your organization. He brings a real unique perspective to sales leadership by combining what I love are the soft skills. That's so great to hear. Influencing and time management, of course, all important mindset. Combining it with the hard skills. Understanding the data. Nobody talks about that. That's why I'm so excited you're here with us, Buck. In understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. But, you know, he's a busy guy, but outside of work, he's even busier. He's the father of 5 amazing children. He and his wife will be celebrating their 20th anniversary this year. He just got back from Alaska. I just learned that about 2 minutes ago. So when he does have any leftover time, he's on a bike, he's in the gym, or just got back from Alaska. He's been fishing. So very, very cool. So Buck, I'm so excited to have you on with us.
Janet, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that really, really good, thorough introduction. That was great.
It is. It just blows me away when I learn about it. And you know, one of the best parts about our industry is the mindset and the people that you get to meet. And I really feel like we're kindred spirits because we think a lot alike, and you focus on those fundamentals. So 20 years in the business, my goodness, that's a long, long time. What has kept you in the industry for 20 years?
Well, there's a lot that's kept me here. I think probably the biggest thing is I love to see the growth that you find in the field. So when you're working with a leader, or you see somebody come into the direct sales channel for the first time, and then you see the growth that they experience through having to learn some of the skills and, really understanding what it takes to become a leader, where they're not pushed in maybe their day-to-day job or in their family to exhibit some of the skills that's required to have leadership here in the direct sales channel. And when you see people kind of make that switch and start to incorporate in their life some of the things that they learn through direct sales, it's amazing and it's so rewarding. It's incredible.
It truly is. It is very, very rewarding. So you're saying that they learn leadership skills, and there's no such thing as a born leader. I firmly believe that, and I think you're spot on. You learn a lot in direct selling, and you can apply it to all aspects of your life.
Yeah, totally. There's probably, I'll say there's a lot of other reasons, but the other thing is, I didn't grow up in I should say we were probably middle to low income, my dad had a sign company. My mom, just so that we would have dental insurance and healthcare, she went and got a job working over at the local, it was a tech college then, but it later became a university, and she worked there. And I think back, her heart was always, she wanted to be home with us as the kids. I was one of 6 kids.
Oh my. Wow.
She wanted to be with us, but she didn't know how, and I feel like probably one of the biggest things that we find in direct sales is that there is like some of that need, some of that frustration of where people are saying, I would love to be home with my kids more, but I just don't know how to make this happen. And direct sales, in my opinion, is that bridge. I know for a fact if my mom had some of the skills, if she had the opportunities that I think are present today in direct sales, she totally would have taken that path to be able to work part-time on her own hours, but also be at the crossroads of the home with the family.
Right, right.
Seeing those types of opportunities that a lot of people in the direct sales channel are able to participate in my mind, that is one of the biggest things that we could do. I have some other brands that I run outside of, what I do in my day job. And to be able to go in and buy product, you're talking about 10, 20,000 units, to buy as a minimum order quantity.
Right.
That's the equivalent of anywhere from, $50,000 to $100,000 that you have to make in purchases of inventory. To start up a product-based business outside of this channel is untenable. Like it is, you have to be very resolved to jump in and take that type of risk. And direct sales, you can jump in. You don't need to make the big investments in the inventory, and you can start selling products that you're passionate about or a business that you're passionate about day one.
Right.
And so that's really why I love the channel. There's just so much opportunity here for people to jump in, be able to find success with meeting customer needs. And then if they've got the desire, they can build a team and, grow it from there.
Right, right. It's interesting how you say that about your mom, and that's so true. Years back, people weren't aware of it, and it was very new, very different. And that's why I feel it is our obligation for those of us that are in this great industry to share the opportunities. It's our job to share. It's everybody else's job to decide, but people don't realize what can happen. Yeah. You talk about how you look at the industry. You talk about relationships, acquisition. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because those are real fundamentals that people need to realize that, it's not that complicated of a business. So you have to nail those three things down. You said relationships, customer acquisition, and rep acquisition. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So a number of years ago, I was with a company and we did a ton of research because we had hundreds of thousands of sales reps on the books. And we wanted to understand what were the motivating factors behind, someone making the decision to join us as a sales rep. So we worked with this big customer research agency that was out in Chicago. And we were sitting behind, this one-way glass and watching this big, what do you call it? The focus group. And we were watching this and just watching the interaction, the way people responded to the questions that the facilitator was asking. And afterwards, we got all the data, and what they found was that the number one thing that allowed someone to say yes to joining in the direct sales channel was their level of trust. It all came down to trust. So when you back up and you say, okay, if it's all about trust, then you look at it as a process of building trust. And a process of building trust, that's not unique to direct sales.
No, it's not. I was going to say that's every business.
It's every business. Yeah. It's sales across the board. Like if you look at e-commerce, I follow a guy that's like an e-commerce guru. His name's Ryan Deiss. Ryan Deiss, he talks about the whole flow of customer acquisition through ads online. And it's no different. You start with brand awareness, engagement, and acquisition, okay, customer acquisition. He breaks it down, and there's more steps than that. If you go into like the classical marketing model, it goes awareness, interest, decision, action, and then you can add on the retention piece after that.
Right.
But that whole process, marketing, sales, e-commerce, it's all designed to help build relationships.
Right.
And if we, if we got really good at helping people build relationships, then, oh my gosh, I believe the channel would be 10 times what it is today. People would have more, more sales, more volume, more people joining them than ever before. So when I look at the 3 things that we need to do in our channel, or in any company really, is you have to say, okay, what is the model for acquiring a customer? And what does that look like? And there's some pretty basic tools that you can put in place to be able to say, how do we acquire customers in our business? Like, it doesn't matter the company, it doesn't matter the product. You can figure out how do you acquire customers. And then you have to say, how do we acquire reps? And in many of the companies that I've been in, reps, as going back, they join because of trust. And so sometimes outside of the business that you're in, you've already got high levels of trust with certain individuals. They trust you because of working together, or it could have been you were in the same sorority or fraternity. It could be that you're in the same church, that there's a lot of ways that people build trust. And sometimes you reach out to those individuals that you already have trust with, and because of the trust that they have with you, they say, yes, I'll join you.
Right.
But outside of having those types of levels of trust, you have to look at a more organic approach to saying, how do we develop trust along the way to help someone get started? And that's where the whole customer process comes into play. 90%, as I've looked at multiple different companies, 90% of the people that are joining you in business are your loyal customers. And
Absolutely.
That's because they have trust in you as a rep, they have trust in the products, and they have trust in the brand. And when that trust is at an all-time high, that's when you have opportunities to invite to the next level, which would be, hey, either host a party, or it could be even asking someone to join you in the business, but that's when trust is an all-time high. That's where you can start to ask.
Right. Let me ask you this, Buck. This wasn't anything that we had talked about, but as you talk about this, what would you say to that individual that says, well, they're one of my best customers. I don't want to lose them to becoming a distributor or a rep or whatever your company calls them.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody like that? I know what I would say, but I'm curious what you would say.
You know what? I actually applaud them for being so critical about that, because, in a lot of companies, when you sign up a rep, you don't earn anything unless they do something. And so unless you're certain that that person that you're going to bring in is going to go and work the business with you and partner with you, I mean, in a lot of companies, you're going to be making somewhere between 20 and 30% on them as a customer. But if they say, I want to get started, or like if you reach out to them and they're like, yeah, I'm actually interested in this, say, listen, how serious are you? Because I would put it out there and say, if you're wanting to run and you want to work this, as a business, I'll show you how to do it. But if you're willing to do that, the rewards are great. And I would love to work with you together. If not, let's just keep you as a customer. I think oftentimes we're eager to grow our teams. And so we're scrapping. In fact, this is going to sound bad, Janet, but I hate it when you have reps that are basically selling the business opportunity as a way to get discounted product.
Oh my gosh. You are not kidding. I just had this discussion this morning with one of my private clients. It's when you talk, it's just turnover waiting to happen.
Yes.
And if you're earning 20 or 30% on products, now all of a sudden you're earning 2% on their own personal purchases. I'm not real good with math, but that's a losing proposition.
Yeah. And it's, you shouldn't, I know we always say, hey, don't be the judge of someone's success or their opportunity or things like that. But, take ownership. I mean, you do take ownership of the people that you bring in the business, but to be honest, like if you are looking at your those people that you're bringing on, you want them to be successful.
Right.
And if you set those expectations at the very beginning to say, this is what is required, I'm going to help you do it. Like I'm going to help you, achieve our fast start program. That's the number one goal. So within the first 30, 60, 90 days, here's our plan, but I'm going to be there holding your hand all along the way.
Right. Right.
If you have those expectations, that is great. That's perfect.
You need to set it. You're absolutely right. It is right up front. So that kind of leads me to another one of your philosophies is really having and working that strong onboarding process. I always say you're giving birth to a new distributor. You can't just give birth and let them go on their own. You wouldn't do that with your children. So can you talk a little bit about your philosophy with onboarding and the fast start bonuses, whatever your company calls? Everybody has them, but they're all a little different.
Yeah. So when I look at onboarding a new rep or a new consultant, whatever you call them, there's two things that they need to learn how to do. Whatever the customer acquisition activity is, they need to learn how to do that. Whether it's, Epicure, it's cooking classes at, I don't know. It could be parties, or it could be trunk shows. It could, whatever that acquisition is. If the acquisition could be a social media strategy. I know many companies that aren't in the party planning business, and their comp plan isn't set up as a party planning business, but they have the online strategies and they have a system for helping people build that trust online and convert people into customers. So that's number one. They have to know how to execute on that customer acquisition piece. The next thing is they need to know, okay, so that's where probably 70 to 80% of all of the consultants are going to play is customer acquisition. That's all they care about. They don't necessarily want a team. They don't want to talk to most people about joining them in the team. They just want to know that they can earn an income by focusing on products and focusing on customers. And if they can do that, they're happy. Now, there's going to be some of those individuals where they've got to know, how do I acquire a rep? And the magic is if they're doing the customer acquisition, and then the second skill is customer follow-up. So if they're generating, as we talked about, 90% of all of the enrollments are going to come from loyal customers.
Right.
So if they've got a system for customer follow-up, they're following up with those customers, making sure that they had a great experience. That is the pool of potential reps in the future. Or at a very minimum, that's the pool of potential hosts or hostesses or whatever it is. If it's party planning, that is the pool for future business going forward.
Right.
So those are the two skills that a brand new rep, in my opinion, needs to learn. One is, how do I acquire customers? Two, how do I retain customers? How do I make them loyal? And in my mind, the customer loyalty, that is the difference between direct sales and retail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're spot on. I mean, I people that know me get sick of hearing me talk about fit foo. I say fortune's in the follow-up. And you need to create that stickiness. Yeah. And I think that's one of the most important soft skills that I know I teach and you teach is great customer service. Yeah. I mean, it's imperative. You're spot on. So now you work with a lot of the very top people, the big guns, if you will. And they all have a little bit in common. There are some certain traits, but one of the things, and this is why when I got to know you and I read about this, talking about how to analyze your business and understanding the key performance indicators and what makes you money, what helps you to achieve your goals. Can you talk a little bit about what it takes, what the top leaders do, and even if you're not there yet, what are some of the things you could do to start achieving, to be at the top?
Okay, So this is a big discussion, but
okay, I'm ready.
So I've got a handful of theories that I have about the direct sales channel. One is if a consultant or a rep, and there's no metric, there's a metric for it, but nobody measures it. If their earnings per hour spent on their business is greater than what they anticipated, their recruiting is going to go up. Does that make sense? Absolutely.
So, that's the mindset side of it too, but yeah.
And so there's if that's the case, if that's true, like people are surprised, oh my gosh, I can't believe I made this amount of money for the amount of time that I spent on it. If that's true, then every leader and every company should look at ways that they could increase the earnings per hour spent on their business. So what does that look like? Well, if you've got products that are in high demand from just the average consumer, you roll those out and your reps, your consultants put those online or in parties, people are going to be gobbling it up and they're going to be surprised at how quickly they're able to sell through stuff and earn an income. Another way to do it would be decreasing the barriers to selling. So on the back end, if I can make the selling process easier, that means my reps are spending less time. They're going to be earning more for the time that the less amount of time that they're spending.
Their hourly wage, if you will, right?
So, it would be amazing if we could go across the company, all companies, and we could have a measurement to say, every direct sales rep would want to know this, like, what is that company's earning per hour? What's this company's earning per hour? And granted, there's, it's different, but if you could do that, oh my gosh, it would be amazing. So that's number one. Second theory that I have is that you have to be watching your engagement as a company. Okay, so engagement, and this is the number one thing that I teach the leaders, the very first KPI to watch. So engagement, the way that you'd measure that, let's take a look at a party planning business, okay? So we know in a party planning business, the acquisition model is parties, right? Right. The thing that correlates with volume more than anything else is the number of parties you have. Parties go up, volume goes up. That's like immediate, short term. If I want to increase sales, I increase the number of parties. So what we look at, the metric that we look at is the number of parties per rep in the organization. That gives us an engagement ratio, okay? It tells us how engaged the entire organization is. And if we can start to look at organizations, I look at companies, company-wide, I look at companies to see how engaged they are. And if you have, let's just say we look at an organization, maybe it's got 5 million in volume. We can then look at each one of those separate teams or separate organizations that are in the downline and give them a score based off of the level of engagement. So here's an example. We have one leader over here that's, in our organization, and let's just say her engagement is 0.65, meaning she does 0.65 parties per rep in the organization or on her team. But over here, we've got an organization that does over 1 party per person on the team. So you look at, they're almost twice the amount of engagement as this other team, meaning there's a couple of things happening with this team that's incredibly engaged. One, the leaders really work in their business, and that sends a signal to the rest of the team, right? We always talk about the pace of the leader, the team, right? So that's number one. Number two, they launch people effectively. Because if they launch people effectively, then those individuals, they have the tools, they have the framework, everything that they need to get started. And over here, if they don't have that launch system, they might be bringing people in and just selling them on getting a discounted kit. They never do anything. So that decreases that engagement ratio. But these ones that are launching people effectively, they've got a high engagement ratio. Okay. Number three is they're setting really bad expectations for brand new reps. So they might teach them things and get them going, but they're teaching them, that you just do whatever you need to do to get by. It's not like they're not engaging them in the culture of the organization. There's no like activities or recognition or incentives or things like that to help bring them in and have them be part of like the thriving business, right? And there's a handful of other things that we could look at to say, why is the engagement low over here and why is it high over here?
Right. Today, again, I had another conversation with somebody, and they were talking about, I just added this many people to my team, and I'm now up to 500. And I said, how many of them are active, meaning sending in orders on a regular basis? She didn't know that answer. And I said, I don't care how many people you have, if they're not active, you have to have that level of engagement. And I think you are so spot on. It all starts with launching them properly.
Yeah.
It is absolutely true. Now, you have a really good story that you shared with me. I don't know if you want to share that, but of somebody that you've worked with by looking at the right KPIs, what has happened to them and what can happen in the business if you're looking at the right things, because it is a big business. I know it's simple, but there's a lot of different things, but it's finding that one key performance indicator that's going to make the most difference. Yeah.
So that engagement is the number one KPI that we look at. That's the foundation. Yep. And as a company, companies should be looking at engagement on a regular basis, because if they start to see engagement drop, that is the first step into being like, oh no, we're heading down a wrong path. We've got to get engagement back up. Right.
Right.
I've worked with a number of different leaders throughout my career. There was one that we worked with in particular that, and here's the thing, Janet, is a lot of the leaders that we have in the direct sales channel, they're sitting in a chief sales officer position. They truly are.
Right.
They're driving millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in sales every single year. But they're not equipped. The vast majority of them are not equipped because they've come up through the ranks. They've learned leadership skills and gleaned and grasped, different things here and there. But there's each and every single one of these leaders needs to understand, how do I look at organizations to understand what are the strengths and weaknesses and what is the data telling me? So we started working with this one leader in the past that she started out, she said, here's my goal. This is what I want to do. And I was pretty aggressive and said, okay, if we help you do this, this is what, this is the bonus that we're going to work in for me as well, because I want to help you get there. She started at roughly, 60,000 in volume. She ended not volume, in income, and ended at over $300,000 a month in income. And it's because now she has this framework to say, one, who are the rock stars? And I can tell by the level of engagement that they have in their team, how they're working with their team. And we can start to go and see what are the triggers that they're pulling to really get high engagement. So I can learn about my business a heck of a lot more. The second thing is, if I need to put incentive dollars somewhere within the organization, you have to say, what teams am I going to focus on? Well, you focus on the teams that have the greatest engagement. And those are the ones that you would incentivize, because if you're putting dollars as an incentive or prizes here or there on organizations that aren't engaged, that incentive money, that recognition money, whatever, and I'm not saying pay out, but it could be prizes that you're putting out there or trips or whatever it is for your teams. It's not going to, those dollars that you're investing in your business are not going to be as effective unless you focus them on the organizations that are most engaged. And so once you have some of these metrics like the engagement ratio, everything that you're doing, you're already investing training, you're already investing recognition and incentives and promotions and all of that kind of stuff. But once you understand the KPIs, you know better how to invest in certain areas so you get the best results.
Absolutely. The thing about our business is I often will hear, well, I have to treat everybody the same. And I said, these are not your children. You don't have to treat everybody equally. This is, people have to earn it. And I think you have to take away the emotional side of it. And that's what's great about looking at data. Data takes away the face.
Yes.
And in fact, I used to teach people, I still teach them, cover the names. Just look at the numbers and it will tell you. But that is excellent advice. Invest not only your money, but invest your time in the people that are moving your business.
Yeah.
But you have to take the time to look at it.
Yeah. And you can't be afraid to look at it. So here's one other thing. So yes, you're investing in those teams that have the biggest engagement, but those that have, maybe a little bit less engagement, now you have some idea of what they need help with. And so you can work with them based off of where their strengths and weaknesses are. So let's just say, I'll give you the next KPI that we look at, okay?
Okay.
We call this the enrollment ratio, okay? The enrollment ratio, basically, if we're looking at a party planning business, it's the number of parties that it takes to get one enrollment. So someone might have a really low engagement ratio, but they may have a really high enrollment ratio. So for the parties that they're doing, they're able to convert reps really well. And so we start to look at it and say, they're really great at recruiting. They're not really good at getting everyone on the team engaged. What do we need to do with them? Or they might have really great engagement ratio, but their enrollments. So again, the enrollments per number of parties. How many parties does it take to get an enrollment?
Right.
Because there's a correlation there. It's if 90% of our enrollments are coming from loyal customers, then the parties or the cooking classes or the trunk shows, those are generating the customers. If we are helping those customers become loyal, we should see a greater number of enrollments coming out of that. Right. And so that gives us a measurement of that second skill. The first one, engagement ratio, measures the customer acquisition. That next one measures how good are we at retaining and creating loyal customers.
Right. So the enrollment, absolutely. It's interesting how few, because I will always ask, what is your, how many people do you have to talk to get a customer? How many people do you have to talk to add a team member? And most people don't know that.
Yeah.
And it's important. I mean, you think you're doing something wrong, but there are numbers, and if you don't know the numbers, in many cases you're likely just not talking to enough people.
Right. That's exactly right. And if you understand the acquisition, how do you acquire customers, and then how do you acquire your new consultants or new reps? All of a sudden you have like a framework to be like, oh, this month we were really bad on the acquisition side, or this month we were really bad on the engagement side. What do we have to do to get the team more engaged or to help out with the enrollments, and now you can start being a little bit more strategic with, your trainings, your incentives, your recognition, your promotions, like all of that kind of stuff.
All of those soft skills and hard skills that we talk about. You're absolutely right. So it sounds like these really strong leaders know their numbers.
Yes. So that is a lot of what you look at is every single month going through and looking at the entire organization, looking at these metrics for them, but also breaking down the core leadership on their team to say, how are they doing in these different areas? And are there any red flags? Are there any learning points? Do we need to reach out to this person because they've got great engagement? How are they doing that? or they had incredible enrollments. How are they doing that? And Janet, the thing that I like about this model is because we talk a lot about mindset and motivation in the channel, and I think all of that is needed. It's totally needed. But I think a lot of the time people feel powerless because they don't know where to invest their time and their training, what to train on, what to focus incentives and recognition on. And so they don't know where to go as a leader.
Exactly. You are so spot on. And, and to me, recognition is a learned skill. You have to become very good at learning how to recognize, but you need to know what to recognize as well, because, you want to recognize not only the results, but also the right behaviors. I think that's really, really key. Wow. I love your philosophy. I absolutely love it. So, so I want to go a little different direction. I'm just going to throw something at you. What's your favorite book? What are you, any particular book you're reading right now that you would recommend to our listeners? And we're going to talk about your book that's coming out shortly.
Okay. So, let me kind of give a list of books that I love. Okay. And these are this is, I think, the required reading for any leader in the direct sales channel.
Okay.
So you have Influencer by Patterson, Grenny. I think there's like 4 or 5 different authors in there. They're psychologists, and they have this model. It's called the 6 source model. So it's how do you influence organizations? And it's not written for direct sales. It's written for large businesses or churches, things like that. It's a great book. Number 2 would be Influence by, he's the Dean of Psychology at ASU. His name is, oh my gosh, it's a Italian last name. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but Influence by Robert Cialdini. There you go.
Okay.
He wrote it in, I believe it was the 70s or 80s, and it really didn't gain popularity until the internet exploded in the 2000s. But it talks about these biases that humans have that you can use to basically influence behavior. And now read this book with the best intentions in mind. I'll tell you that.
Right. Yeah.
But as you read it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I see that there. This company does that. Online, they do this. Like Costco does this. Like you'll start to see how these different companies use these things. Number 3 would be Spin Selling. And I believe
that's a great one. I agree. Yeah.
The author is Neil Rackham. That is a must read for anyone in the direct sales channel because it just talks about meeting customer needs. Those are probably the short.
Those are 3 great ones. And you know what I find is interesting, especially with the first 2, is that's what we have to do in this business is we have to influence others because we're really working, if you will, with a volunteer army.
Yes.
People can do as much as they want or as little as they want.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you've got, what's next for you, what you've got coming out. I think this is really, really exciting. You want to share a little bit about what's next for you? Yeah.
So, a buddy of mine and I have actually taken a lot of these key principles that we've learned over the last 20 years in direct sales and just put them down in a book. Like, what are these metrics that a leader needs to know? And so the book is nearly done. It's just getting formatted right now. But it's basically a leader's handbook to understanding what are the metrics to look at in your business to make sure that you know how to influence your organization. It's from a metric standpoint.
Okay.
Yes, there is some of the soft skill that's in there, but for the most part, we're teaching the hard skills because there's so many trainers on soft skills. And what we wanted to give is help the channel, especially the leadership in the channel, have the hard skills that it takes to really look at, analyze, and action in their business, in their organizations.
And what is the name of the book going to be?
Well, right now the working title is The Metrics of Leadership. So that's the working title. I think that's probably the one that we're going to go with. I've just got to make sure that we're set on that. But yeah, that's really the crux of it, is like walking people through so that they can understand at the core of it, we're building trust. And then how do you build trust, and how do you measure that? Like those processes for building trust to where you're gaining customers, those customers become loyal. And then how do you translate that into building a team? And where do you see the strengths and weaknesses across the organization in those key areas?
I can't wait. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but any guess of when, what's your guesstimate of when you'll launch your book?
I would imagine it's going to be available here in the next couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's already done. It's already done. We're just formatting it. It's going to be an ebook. In fact, if people are interested in getting their hands on it, we don't have a website or anything like that. It's just going to be a free copy if they want.
Okay.
They can reach out to me on Facebook. It's just Buck McMurray. I'm the only Buck McMurray that there is. I bet you are. No, and know that for all of our listeners, there will be all of the show notes will be attached. Yeah. So you'll have every way possible that they can track you down, Buck. And I know that I will certainly be in touch with you, because I so believe in these metrics. And it's unfortunate, but most people are not taught these things, and these are critical skills. You absolutely know how to you have to know how to analyze your business and which levers to pull. But when I heard the story of the person that you helped go from 60,000 to over 300,000, wow, that said it all to me. And it is, being a very, very strong influencer. So, but any last minute words of advice for any of our listeners of what they should do if they did one thing with their business that they should do? Oh gosh, I
know that's hard because I'm only saying one, but
I would say focus on the customer, like focus on that customer experience. I think probably the biggest thing that you're seeing in the direct sales channel right now, the thing that differentiates companies it's that customer experience. That's what it gives us a competitive advantage. There's a lot heating up right now when it comes to athleisure and the direct sales channel. There's a couple of different companies in athleisure. Right. The thing that separates them from someone like Lululemon or Athleta or some of the other big retail brands of athleisure, it's the experience. It's you never go into Lululemon and buy a pair of leggings and go home, and then the sales rep calls you, a couple of days later to see how your experience has been. That never happens.
No, they don't. Like, you're right.
At Epicure, we sell food and we have cookware. And if you go into a grocery store and buy something, a week or two later, someone from the grocery store doesn't call you up and say, tell me about your meal. How was it? Like, how did you like your chicken? How did you like this? That doesn't exist, but it does in the direct sales channel. And if people get used to making sure that if I was at one of these big brands, I would institute something like that to differentiate, because the retail brands are under fire right now and they have to differentiate. And what we have in direct sales, because we're growing, the channel overall is growing like crazy, is that experience that other channels, whether it's retail or online, they don't offer it. We do. And it's the experience, but it's the relationship. And if our direct sellers, if we got better at creating that customer experience, even if it was negative, right? Even if it was negative and you called someone up and they said, oh, I don't really like this. This is working out, but I don't like this. You're perfectly fine. Let's get it back to the company. Here's the process for doing it. We want to make sure you're happy. like that person now has more respect for you and for the brand than ever before.
100%. And, you think about it, and some might think it's a bit old school, but I'll tell you what, a thank you card goes a long way, and it differentiates you from everybody else. So you're absolutely right. The customer is king or queen.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, nothing happens until we sell something, and we don't sell anything until we're acquiring and helping those customers. So,
yeah.
But, well, Buck, I so appreciate you taking your time. I learned a ton. I know I will be on the lookout for your ebook, Metrics of Leadership, and everybody will. I bet you, honestly, by the time this airs, there's a good chance your book will be ready for others. So if you are a leader, you need this. If you want to become a leader, you need this. And if you are an executive with another direct selling company, you need this. I think and quite honestly, I think every business needs this. This makes complete and total sense. So Buck, thank you so much for your time and your insight. We so appreciate it. This is Janet Metzger from the Network Marketers Den, and here's to you achieving all your goals and dreams through the best industry that there is. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.